Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of Deep Dive. I'm Rudy Rosique. I'm a senior here at Syracuse University studying health and exercise science on the pre-physical therapy track. Today, I have with me a couple of veterans to celebrate Veterans Day. We're going to talk about our life experiences in the military, what brought us here, and what we're doing now. So I'll just start first with Deprimo. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Matthew Deprimo. I'm a second-year master's student here at Syracuse University. One of the assistant coaches for the rugby team, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I was stationed at Fort Drum with the 10th Mountain Division, and combat deployment to Afghanistan, among probably a lot of other things. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Cool. So next up, Cliff.
Yes, hello. I'm Clifton, Washington, a second-year student or graduate student at Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Service, double majoring in international relations and public affairs.
Awesome.
Army's veteran. Started off National Guard, one deployment to Jordan, and which I believe my wrist at. We'll probably get into that a little bit later.
Fantastic. And then for the first time in this podcast, we have someone calling in via Bluetooth. And it's Professor Walker, a chemistry professor on campus at Syracuse University. Can you please introduce yourself?
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for the introduction. We're all veterans here. You can just call me by my real person name, Ted. So my name is Ted Walker. I am a professor in chemical engineering here at Syracuse University. I started last fall, and it was in a former life. I was in the 2nd Ranger Battalion from 2007 to 2012.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I'll start off. The first question is, why did you join the military? What did you do? And why did you separate? We'll start off with this time go Cliff.
Interesting story here. Never really planned on joining the military straight out of high school. Initially, I planned on going straight to university, but I had this persistent recruiter. I kept calling and coming to my house. And I kept telling him, hey, man, I'm going to school. I'm going to school. And then one day he posed this question that had me change my mind instantly. He asked me, how was I paying for it? And I didn't have an answer.
That's a tough ass question. Yeah.
That's a tough, especially because I come from like a working class family who put like $0 and 0 cents away from my education. So literally, I think the next day he was at my house and I was signing enlistment papers. So that's my story. Obviously, I enjoyed my time in the service. Probably the best thing I've done. But I'm going to be honest, that's the real initial reason why I enlisted in the service.
So why did you separate?
Oh, separation. That's on my deployment. We were patrolling with the Jordanians on the Syrian border and walking on a ridgeline. Rock kind of broke off with me on it, and I kind of blew my wrist out. Got medevaced out, did like a year's worth of rehab, a little over a year, and had some surgery. And that's pretty much kaputs for that.
Cliff said it pretty nonchalantly, but it's a big deal because that happened years ago, and your wrist is still not nowhere near 100%. It's like
No.
70-ish, would you say?
No, I still never really gained full use of my wrist back. I still continue to go under rehab like once a week. And it's interesting, my story back to education and coming back to Syracuse or coming to Syracuse University was because I was working as an auditor, and with the there's like no range of motion with my wrist, and there's no cartilage from my fingers back to my wrist. So it's bone on bone. And that typing motion action in Excel was too much, and I was ending up in the ER at least 4 to 5 times a month. And the chief of the ER finally came to me and she stated like, hey, I know you love your job, but it's time for you to find a new career. You just can't keep coming in here, once a week for steroid injections and for pain pills. So I began the long process of figuring out what I wanted to do, because I was set in my career. I loved my career. And, I'm getting a little deep into it right now, but I never really thought I was like smart. So like I never really thought grad school was for me in general. So there's a whole process of, talking to the therapist like, hey, Cliff, you're smart, you can do it, you can take the GRE. So like it took like a lot of time for me to reprogram myself to go back to school. And and here I am, like one of the best programs. I'm at Maxwell, one of the best programs in the country. I did an internship at the State Department over the summer, and like it's full of Max grads and Maxwell students or Maxwell graduates. So like maybe it's God's plan. Like we'll see.
And that's amazing. And definitely improve. You're smart enough. You're here. You're
Right.
doing
Oh,
really
yeah.
good in life.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. So, Matt, like same question. Like, why'd you go in and why'd you separate?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it brief, but coming out of high school, I was toying with the idea of enlisting, and I had a couple of my buddies who all enlisted into different branches. One of my buddies ended up going into the Marine Corps. I was toying with going into the Corps for a little while, but I still wasn't 100% sold on their values and their ethics and everything. You're like, these guys are ruthless, always doing. And you're like, maybe I don't know. Like you're still hemming and hawing, and I feel like if you're questioning it, you shouldn't do it. And that's with anything,
Right on.
right? So I held off, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna enlist. And then one of my other buddies in my friend groups, comes rolling along and says, I'm going to join the Air Force. I'm going into the Air Force. And again, you're kind of like, yeah, maybe the Air Force, that'd be cool. Like go in and be involved with, being on a plane or being part of a flight crew or whatever it may be, right? And then you think about it, like, I don't know if that's really where I want to go, and the type of job. What am I going to do once I get out?
Right.
So I just said, no, you know what? Forget it. My dad said he's a 14-year veteran himself. So my of the United States Army. And my father was like, well, why don't you just go to school, go to college, get your degree. And then once you graduate, you can make a decision on what you want to do. There will be another opportunity available to you. Now you could also become an officer. So you can enlist, be an officer, you can, stay in the civilian world, whatever it may be. So I went, fast forward, graduated from my undergrad at Penn State University, got a job as an internal investigator working for like TJ Maxx, Marshall's Home Goods, and basically playing undercover boss, putting hidden cameras inside of the big Connex containers as they would come into the yard so that we would get, visuals on people like digging through packages and trying to steal, a lot of loss prevention type of stuff. And then auditing.
Yeah, I know they did.
No idea they did that.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that people don't know that anyone does, right? I don't know if they do it anymore. Who knows? A little more crude methodologies back then.
Right.
So, I was working that job for a little bit, and it was fun. It was a good pay after you get out of college, good starting gig. They put me into a team leader position. So it's like I already was, getting used to managing a little bit. I was like, yeah, this is fun. This is cool. Like I can do this for a little bit. I don't know if this is going to be my profession,
Right.
And sometimes in these warehouses, you have some pretty, large in stature people, right? Who may or may not have a history. And I had a very petite woman on my team. And when I say petite, I mean she was like 4'11", like maybe,
Oh wow.
very, very like maybe like 100 pounds soaking wet. Like she was, a smaller person. And I was in the camera room one day, and I just hear a blood curdling scream.
Wow.
And I'm like immediately sprung to action, hopped up, ran out of the room. And what in my mind, because some of these positions on the team are known about, they're not an undercover type of a position. So like they pat these people down as they're coming out of the warehouses every single day to make sure that they don't have anything on them.
Right.
Right. So I'm thinking like, what, did she try to pat someone down there and they're roughing her up because she was on shift to do that?
Yeah.
And I hear this scream. So I come running out of the control room, and what do I meet but a gentleman laying face down on the ground, unconscious. And growing up, I was always around water, lifeguarding, I held lifeguarding jobs and everything. So I, knew CPR and knew to just like get into it, right? So I flipped the guy over, cut his shirt open, send one person off to go call 911, another person off to go get a defibrillator, start throwing rescue breaths into him. After I checked for his pulse, no breath, no rising of his chest. I'm like, he's gone.
Wow.
So almost 10 minutes later, the paramedics finally show up. Now, at what point in time in there was his heart restored? I don't know. But when the paramedics showed up, they put their good equipment on him, their good defibrillator, the good airbag, for oxygen. And after a couple checks, the guy gets a faint pulse, is red. So we got him up onto the gurney, ran him out the front door, threw him in an ambulance, off he went, right? Yeah. Couple weeks later, I get called into a CEO meeting for that company.
Life,
and this is 2 weeks later, and I'm 22 years old, maybe 23 years old at this point. So I'm not even thinking about what just happened 2 weeks ago, right? And I got these bigwigs of this company looking at me from across a boardroom table, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm getting fired. Like, I don't know what it's for, but I'm getting fired. Like, this can't be good. Why are you getting called in here, right? And they thanked me, and they were like, we've contacted the family and everything, and the gentleman survived. And they gave me a bunch of gift cards for their stores. And you guys chuckle because you know exactly where I go with this. Is like, to me, I like, maybe a little cynical minded. It was a kind gesture of them to do that for me. But in my head at that point in time, maybe at that age, I was like, is this all this man's life is worth? And I immediately went home to my father that night and told him, I'm not waiting any longer. I want to join the United States Army. And he took me down to a recruiter. I signed my papers, and I was 09 Sierra, which is an officer candidate. So you go to basic training, you go through your infantry basic. I went down to Fort Benning because then if you fail out of basic, you're gone. You don't go to OCS. It's to see if you can hack it, So,
Yeah.
But then if you graduate basic and you don't hack it at OCS, you're needs at the Army, they make you enlisted. And at least you're already done with your training, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So I went in and I graduated basic, graduated OCS. They branched me. And then I went off to my branch school. After graduating from that, was stationed up at Fort Drum, at the 10th Mountain Division. And then that kind of leads me to why I got out, right? So, I had a great time as my PL time, first and second lieutenant ranks. They were great. Then I was a hard charger. I felt like I always had to prove myself to everybody around me that like I deserved to be, thought after as like a good soldier, as a PT stud, as like, whatever, great leader. He's strong, he's fit, he's a great shot. Like, so in my mind, I'm like, I got to make this happen because at Bolick, they branched me signal. And I didn't know IT. I didn't know satellite communications, radio communication. I didn't know any of that. And they saw my degree from Penn State was rhetorical analysis and theory, which is a communications-based degree. So they saw, it's a commo degree. We're going to make him a commo officer.
I see.
You know what I mean? So I went to my unit already with this mentality of like, dang, like I'm signal, like, isn't that the, branch people tease? Cause it's like, the signalers is like, and then the signalers kick back at them and they do say it kind of corny, but it still has the same respect. And it's, you can talk about us, but you can't talk without us. And that's a fact.
That's fact.
And that's a fact. But yeah, so I had this point I had to prove. So I was always hard charging, the guy in the front, in the rucks, the guy volunteering to, do competitions and fitness stuff and led the PT and all that, So to me, it was like, all right, I got to do this. And then the deployment came along to Afghanistan, and we didn't know who was going to stay, who was going to go, what was going on. But I remember I went up to my company commander and I said, sir, I don't care what I have to do. I'll be somebody's RTO. Put me in as the battalion commander, brigade commander's RTO. I said, I don't care. Right. And, the battalion commander at the time was pretty hard charger himself. And he respected that. And he was like, all right, if you want to go, you're going. Right. Little did I know what would ensue once I once I got there. But I got out on the deployment, everything. My body physically on the outside looked great. Looked great. But mentally, or I guess internally, is a different story. Talking like bones and everything, right? Because I get into this deployment and the constant wearing of like rucks and kit and helmets and running everywhere, always getting pounding on my body and everything. And then, it just really started eating away at me. And I ended up suffering from something called radiculopathy. And that's basically nerves got crushed in my spinal cord. And now my hands will go numb and all this other nonsense. So, but then I also have a herniated disc, 2 bulging discs. Like my body just started falling apart. And it's like, it was so bad because you're just like, man, all I was trying to do was be the best that I could be.
Right.
All I was trying to do was train as hard as I could so that people can rely on me, so that I could be there to support and defend. Right. But in all seriousness, no, to do what I was supposed to do. And it just, the mental me was there, but the physical me was not able to. And then along with some other stuff that happened while I was overseas, and I'll just leave it at that. By the time I came back, Big Army was trying to send me off to my new command as a captain, and local Army was trying to med board me out. and they weren't talking to one another. Go figure, right? So they eventually, went through all my medical stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going to go through with the med board." So they looked at everything, and then once it was decided upon, percentages were given, and I was sent out. I mean, thankfully, and I will say the United States military does try to take care of people the best that they can, because I know a lot of people give them a lot of smack about it. But I was able to have healthcare benefits and some compensation to try and help you, with your transition and getting on with your next part of your life. But I can go on and on forever. I'll stop it there and pass it over.
Thank you for all that. Ted, if you want to tell us what brought you to the Army and what made you separate?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. Well, if you were to ask me, I could tell you what happened when I went to the Army, and I'll say a little bit about that, I suppose. But if you were to ask me why, my answer will change from year to year, maybe even week to week. And I suppose that's because at the time I joined, there was just a lot going on. 2001, 9/11 was my freshman year of high school. And I lived in a small town with a pretty robust pipeline. For us, it was the Marines. A lot of my high school buddies went into the Marines. And at the end of the day, whatever reasons I feel like I have right now or that I had, I think I just got swept up in something bigger than myself. And I'm listening to these other stories that are being shared, and it sounds like many of us had that same experience. We just sort of felt a calling that we could not resist. And at the time, I made this decision, and believe it or not, I was a music student. I was going to be a classical musician.
Wow.
I was going to play the clarinet in pit orchestras,
Love that.
in operas. For whatever reason, I thought that's what I was going to do with my life. And I realized, fortunately for myself and for the music-loving world, that I had no business doing that very early on. I simply didn't have the raw talent. And so like any well-adjusted 18-year-old guy, I handled it super well. And I said, oh, fine, I'll go to war then. And So I came home and I told my family that I was going to join the Marines too, just like a number of my friends did. And it was an abrupt change, and they were dubious. They were morose because I wanted to join the infantry, and they just didn't understand that there were no active duty military service members anywhere in my family at the time.
Paved the way.
Going back to World War II, that was the most recent.
Wow.
And there was a lot of there was a lot of confusion and pain and anxiety around my decision, and I responded to that. And so, while I ultimately did decide to join the Army, I did acquiesce in one respect. They said, "Why don't you take a year, try some other things? There's plenty of opportunities to put yourself in harm's way, and serve a higher purpose and help others without joining the military. It's an awfully this is a snap decision. It's clearly emotional. Why don't you dwell on it?" So I did. And, I lived in a trailer park because I dropped out of college, and I worked fast food jobs, Subway and Little Caesars and things like that. And could, barely make ends meet. I dabbled with some community college to explore other majors. I tried being a volunteer firefighter. I tried being a wildland firefighter. I was an EMT.
Oh.
And at the end of the year, I didn't have a career at any of these things. These were volunteer positions, so I just tried them out. And at the end of the year, I told my family, "Well, you're right. A year does make a difference, and I do feel quite a bit better, and I do feel quite a bit differently, and I've changed my mind." They said, "That's great. We're glad to hear it. What are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to join the Marines. I'm going to be an Army Ranger." What's that? Like, well, what is that, and why that now? And I said, well, because when per your suggestion, I was on a wildland firefighting crew. I met a former Army Ranger, and he said, "Well, if you're interested in being infantry and you think you want to go Marines because you want to have some excitement in your life and you want to see action, then you should be a Ranger instead, because you get to be airborne, and I guarantee you." You will get far more action and excitement and adventure than you ever bargained for. And so I decided to do that. Again, not really thinking twice about it, sort of just had, I'd made up my mind. And I think everyone here understands when that call is irresistible. Once you get it in your mind that that's something you have to do with your life, it takes nothing less than an act of God, usually, to take you out of it, or to divert you from it. So that's why I joined. It was simply a calling at the end of the day, and it was something I felt I needed to do. Why did I get out? So at the time I got out, I had spent 2 years as a 40 millimeter recoilless rifle gunner and 3 years as a line team leader. I was an 11 Bravo, and I'd racked up. I don't have records that allow me to count it, but it was Ranger Regiment, so the op tempo was pretty intense. It was 4 to 6 months overseas, 6 months back home, and that was all training and rinse repeat for 5 years. And so I'd racked up several hundred at least combat missions, although on the vast majority of those, nothing happened at all. But I had done enough, and I'd seen enough to be able to start assessing my own strengths and weaknesses critically and honestly, right? And at the time I was in E5, I had a team, and the next step for me would have been to take a squad. And when I told my leadership that I was going to let my contract expire and I was going to EPS, they of course tried to change my mind, because by that point they've invested quite a lot in you and you've gotten pretty close with them, and it would be hard to replace you. And they told me what would come next and how much better my life would be, etc. And at the time I told them, I think they thought it was a cop-out. So if they ever hear this, I hope they, in retrospect, realize that in 10 plus years, however long it's been, I haven't done the math in a while, my story hasn't changed. I still feel this way. I said, look, there are a few things I simply am not good enough at. And one of them is my sense of direction. The only reason I get away with the job that I have is because I am below a certain threshold level of responsibility. But I honestly feel that, I don't know that I would be able to lead a squad. I care too much about the people that I'm with, and I don't know that I have that in me. I may have, I have the commitment and I have the drive, but I don't know that my brain works that way. And I'm afraid that it wouldn't go well, and I'll get someone hurt or worse.
Wow.
And all of the alternatives are sort of unthinkable to me, because also at that time, the Ranger Regiment's op tempo was starting to simmer down a little bit, and we were starting to become less active in the theater. And so I came there to fight the war. And in my estimation, the war was maybe cooling down a little bit, and I felt much the same way I did when I went into the military. I felt like there was something else that I had to do. And I had a plan, which was to go back to school and to be an engineer. I didn't think it through much more than that, but I did feel compelled. And I was very grateful for the experiences that I'd had in the military, and I'd gotten there, in particular into the job that I had, and into onto the team that I was with, by following my instincts. And so I decided to trust my instincts again, and I let my contract expire, and I went back to school.
Wow.
Wow, that's an interesting story.
Way to keep it real.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a very humble man. I commend you for that, for sure.
Well, the experience humbles you, doesn't it? I hear that in all your voices too. I would hope that anyone who spends that much time, again, being part of something so much larger than yourself, where you are not only told, but you have to live the reality every single day that this is not about me. Then, if you don't walk away from that experience with a very deep sense of humility, then, well, I wouldn't understand that. What we felt we were trying to do, and how we feel about it now, looking back, we did very different things. But I'm very grateful. I'm going to start waxing sentimental here and suck all the oxygen out of the room. So I'll just say that I'll say this in brief. The veteran community at Syracuse University was not necessarily a draw for me, because I didn't know that it was here. And the reason I didn't know it was here is because the faculty job market in particular is completely oversubscribed. You have just a ridiculous number of candidates for every open position. And so in that ecosystem, if you're serious about landing a job, you cast a very wide net, and you don't look too closely. You simply ask, would I work at this place if an offer was made? And if the answer is yes, you put your best foot forward, and you don't think it through any further than that until you have the offers in hand. And it was only after I arrived, very shortly after I arrived, that I was pulled into this very robust, this very strong, and this very time-honored community that we have here at the university that, to my knowledge, is not really replicated elsewhere. Not in the way that we have here at Syracuse. So it's an honor to be here, and it's great to meet all of you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the other universities are getting there. Some better in some places than others, but I think Syracuse just does such an excellent job and a well-rounded scale.
Yeah.
They have something going on in every aspect of it that really drives it. So when you do come to Syracuse, it's not an if, it's a when.
Yeah.
It really is, such a fantastic university. You really are just immersed with so much welcomeness from the veteran community, from the faculty, the staff, just in general. As a student coming onto campus, that's just how I felt. Because for the first, I don't even know, maybe first semester, right? I believe it was the fall semester when I started my master's program. I didn't even know we had a student veteran organization
either.
And I didn't check any emails. I didn't come to any of the meetings. I didn't go to any of the events, nothing like that. And, I slowly started maybe running into a couple, service members here and there, different branches, and eventually just came to a meeting, and it all just kind of took off from there. But yeah, they really do. I can't say it enough. They're a fantastic university.
That's a good lead-away to our next question is,
Yeah.
post-military, what plans do you have? And is that plan still the same? Let's start off with you, Deprimo.
No, this is not what I was planning. But this is what happened. And I think Clifton said it earlier. Like sometimes it's just like it's like an act of God. Like
Exactly.
you can't control it. You just gotta. You're on the ride. You just gotta put your hands up and enjoy it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a roller coaster, but it's a ride nevertheless. Yeah, I was trying to figure out like what am I going to do? Am I PCSing or are they going to med board me out? Like where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And all the while, I met my now wife, and we started dating. We started talking. Eventually, we got engaged, and we were deciding, when are we going to have the wedding? Where are we going to have the wedding? And I felt so bad for her, but she was getting just a taste of that military life. And I'm sure other spouses and kids could understand this, but you're like, I don't know yet.
Right.
I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know when I'm going. I don't know if I'm even going. I might just be staying right here. Like, who knows where I'll be.
How long were you in limbo of like knowing you're separate or knowing you might go to an interview station? Like, how long was that?
Like a year.
Oh, that's a long time.
Like a year. Yeah.
And where were you physically during this time?
I was back in the States, and I got back, and they moved me into a battalion S6 OIC position, officer in charge position. You're just the signal, or not just you are the signal liaison for satellite, radio, all things communications wise to the battalion commander, and helping out with all the other commo chiefs that are at all the other companies throughout the battalion, just trying to make sure everyone's good to go. So they moved me into that position, and I was kind of digging it for a little while. Like, this is a cool spot. And then the process all started. And then it felt like the unit was like, well, hey, we're gearing up to go on another deployment. We need our S6 is going to be able to go on the deployment with us, which is very fair. Right. And they actually moved me up to a higher position. They put me up at brigade to be the AS6, so the assistant to the S6 OIC, but at a higher echelon.
Right.
And with that gentleman deploying with the brigade, that would leave me in the rear as the S6 for the brigade while they were gone. So, in a way, it kind of set me up for more success for once I got out of the military, because I didn't know what I was going to do. And when they told me, hey, yeah, you're getting med boarded, I was like, oh, here we go. And you're playing pickup sticks real fast, trying to put your life together. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? At the time, she was still my fiance, but my wife now and I were house hunting for months, in probably the worst housing market that we've had in quite some time, a few years here now. And then I was applying to jobs, and I was applying to university because I knew coming out, I knew if I got a job and it was a good paying job, regardless of having my GI Bill, and because I went OCS as an officer, I got to come out with my full GI Bill. So I'm like, I don't know if I don't go to school now, I'll probably never go back.
Right.
Yeah. I'll probably just keep moving forward, figure out a degree field, maybe pick up some certifications and move on with my life.
Right.
But my wife just got a new job in the area here in Syracuse. I didn't want to pull her away from a job that she wanted, because I saw so many other marriages fail while I was in the military because of things like that.
Right.
And I said, you know what? No, that she's making moves and doing great things in her life. Who am I to come in and start guiding her life in a direction when I don't even know where I'm supposed to go yet? So I put in for Syracuse into their master's program here in the I school, and I was accepted to that, and just kind of kept rolling from there. Yeah.
Awesome, man. It's cool. It all worked out.
Yeah, it really does.
How you beat Orange, yeah.
Yeah.
Cliff?
Yeah, so I had a kind of an interesting like road to actually get to Syracuse, and I'm still obviously on that road to get to the career that I'm trying to get to. Um, when the doctor delivered that news, and I, was brainstorming with my, the mental health team and as sort of like what I'd be doing for the rest of my life.
Mm.
Um, I had to stop working. They were cool enough to put me on as a part-time consultant, so I got paid for like what I did,
Mm.
and it was a pretty generous amount of money that they were hourly salary they were giving me. Um, and at the time, I was like living in Dallas, Texas, with my brother. Because like you want to move back with someone, and plus I kind of still needed help because
Mm.
my hand was still like really messed up. Um, so he said that he was getting a new job in the area. Our lease was coming to an end. I told him I was looking at grad schools, didn't really know where or what I was doing. So he moved on to get his own apartment, and I kind of just went off the grid. I like moved to South America.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like during COVID, and I just took off. Bought a one-way ticket to Colombia and moved to Cartagena.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, and my Spanish was not so great, and I'm not living. I live pretty close to the tourist destinations, and like right on the beach, but not where people spoke English. So like no one spoke like a word of English. And I'm walking down there, and I'm picking, Spanish up on the fly. And it got to the point to where like I took Spanish lessons like online with this Venezuelan girl, and I kind of picked it up.
Yeah.
But I spent a year down there, like, consulting and like put my ruck on, and I'd like walk in the jungle, find somewhere, that somebody had internet via satellite, and I'd knock out some reports, and I'd, head back out in the world. Right, you know what I mean?
I love this.
So I went from Colombia, and then I like moved to Ecuador, and I was staying in Quito, which is like a pretty reverse to Colombia. Like it's pretty dangerous out there. I've had like a dude pull a gun on me out there, like literally like a Western like where they have when like three people have a gun on each other, like
Oh, the old Spider-Man.
yeah, Spider-Man. So like got the dude that's trying to rob me with his gun out, and then I got a security guard that I'm standing behind, and then you got like another security guard across the street with his gun out, and everybody's yelling at each other, and I'm like,
Smokes.
and I'm sitting there like, wow, this is crazy. Like, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is like literally what's going on in my life? So I mean, I got out of that situation.
Good.
Like, a couple of weeks later, I moved to Ecuador, which is like an even shadier spot. So in Spanish, there's a word peligro, and they'd say peligroso. So like I initially thought that peligroso meant pollution, because we're driving through the cities of Quito, and like the buses there blow out black clouds of smoke. And the guy would always tell me to roll up the window, it's peligroso, and and I walk down like an alley, and the lady be like, no, 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 it's peligroso. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of pollution in the alley. A lot of So, one day I'm like, I end up traveling to the Galapagos Islands, which I didn't know was in Ecuador. I kind of figured that out like on the fly.
Mm.
And I see a sign that says peligro. And there's like, and underneath it says danger. So the entire time living out there, I thought peligroso meant pollution, but they were telling me like it's dangerous. Do not go down there. And I'd be like, I stick my two thumbs. I'd be like, está bien. And they be shaking their heads. So I muddled around South America. Ended up in the last spot was in Peru, and I, did the trek from Cusco to Machu Picchu, which you have to climb over the Andes Mountains.
Wow.
Then you slog through the jungle, like knee-high mud with your ruck on. You're carrying your life on your back. And then, like, as I'm going through this, like, I'm walking on the trail and I'm like, hey, I'm like, those look like Puma tracks. I'm like, all right, cool.
No.
And I'm walking, wow, those are even bigger Puma tracks. Wow. And then it got to the point where like those are fresh Puma tracks. Like, oh no. So I keep walking and I turn the corner of this trail and I see something jump into the bushes. I'm like, what is that? You know, so I look into the bushes and sure enough, there's this Puma looking dead at me, like eye to eye. And I'm like, oh God. And at this point, you know, I've been slogging through this jungle for like days. So I'm like, if this thing jumped on me, I just do not have the power to fight it out. So, you know, I'm getting big. I'm slamming my trek poles in the ground. I'm like, get away, get away. And it got to the point to where like, man, like if it kills me, I don't care. Like I am so exhausted. Like I just don't care. And then, like my only thought was like, okay, like if I get killed, I want to make sure it at least kills me on the trail. So like my parents could find my body. Like,
wow.
Like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, yeah. So like eventually I just walked away and like never pursued. But yeah, like thank God I'm still here, right?
Wow.
But yeah, so I finished this journey up, you know. And like while I'm over there, you know, I'm applying to grad programs and whatnot. And I get accepted to Syracuse University. And you know, I've never been to Syracuse, never knew what Syracuse was. Like I just knew it had a great program. And I get out here and I think as Ted was saying, like he wasn't sure if what type of veterans community was here. Like I had no idea. Like I showed up a week late. I missed the entire first week and I never went to orientation. So I arrive on campus and I'm talking to people like, oh, there's a veterans center. I'm like, there's a veterans center here. Like what? And they pointed out. So I walk in the building and I'm like looking around at the stuff. Well, that's pretty cool, you know? And I, you know, go in there, I talk to Chad. He's like, hey, I'm like, yeah, I'm a veteran here. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and hang out in the lounge. I'm like, so yeah, rub your card in the lounge and it'll open it up. I'm like, yeah, mine doesn't work. And he's like, are you in the system? I'm like, no, I didn't even know you guys were here. So and that's when I kind of got brought within, you know, the Syracuse veteran community, which was awesome, by the way. Like there was one in my undergrad at Eastern and another one at Robert Morris, but like it wasn't the same. You know what I mean? It was like, if you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not knocking this, but it was dudes, you know, walking around the university with their boots on, their dog tags. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of good on that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I'm
chapter of our life. Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, you know.
Close that book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it just, right now, just moving forward and thinking about like where exactly I want to go per se. Post-military, I'd like to get in the State Department and the resources that the Veterans Center actually puts out through Jen Pluta. Shout out to her. She brought up a program called the WRP program for people with like disabilities to help them get into the federal government.
Wow.
And I had my internship at the State Department in DC over the summer, and it was like the most intense, I think, like job I've had. Like, it's like, Cliff, we're going to put you on semiconductors. I don't know anything about semiconductors. Well, we're going to send you to a few seminars around the city, and you know, you're going to be the lead drafter of the congressional paper. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, you're the lead drafter, and you're going to coordinate with, you know, different agencies and departments, you know, like with Commerce, USTR.
Yeah.
And you're gonna lead that for state.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know, and this is like a week one.
Yeah.
And I'm still, I don't even know how to get out the building yet.
Yeah.
You know, so it was an excellent opportunity. The paper was a success. Learned so much. Met ambassadors, Mexican congressmen. And that's the kind of the career path that I'm looking forward to. And as of now, there's also the option of law school. You know, I've talked with Rudy about that as well. I've been looking into that. So I'm kind of keeping my options open. And like, you know, as I said earlier, and I feel like Deprimo also stated that at the point is I'm just on the right. It's God's plan. I'm just on this roller coaster, you know, and I take the SFOT and I take the LSAT, you know, and and then God's gonna put me like where He wants me to go, and
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at right now, man.
Oh, you know, it's pretty awesome. Like, keep your options open. Like when I got out of the
Yeah.
military, I was like, it's time for me to get out. I was like, yeah, I went from E1 to E5 in 3 years. I lived 2 years under the ocean on a submarine. Driving a submarine for 8 hours straight is not that fun, by the way. After like, the first time I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is awesome. I can't believe I'm doing this by these, various countries we're watching or various other submarines we're watching. And after the first time, I'm like, oh man, it's gonna suck now. I mean, it doesn't suck, but after a while, I'm like, man, I'm tired.
Mhm.
He's like,
Yeah.
I was like the mission helm. So every time we were on mission, like I was there no matter what. If it was like a drill, like, no, we need like the best people of every sector, like best sonar, best fire technician, best whatever. Like and I was the best driver, which I should have been because that was like my job out to sea.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like tooting my own horn and being cocky, but like
No.
it was expected for me to be in that position. But anyway, I did that for a few years. I was like, time to move on. San Diego State has this, I don't want to say amazing program because of what I'm about to say next. But they have this program where if you're under like 24 in the military, you get an accreditation from your captain, and it's only in the Navy though, and you can get at least a 2.0 in high school. And along with the recommendation letters from the captain, they'll accept 10 service members from the Navy automatically into the program at San Diego State.
Wow.
Wow.
And I got selected.
Wow.
Nice.
And they're like, hey, congratulations, Raul Rosique. You're one of their top 10. You made it. Thank you. And all that stuff, a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh man, awesome. Thank you. Can't wait. I separate in 3 months. I'll be there. I was looking for apartments. So that's what I did. Started looking at apartments, went to their open house on my terminal leave. Yeah, I did everything.
Yeah.
I stopped applying to other schools because they verbally told me I'm in.
You're in there.
Yeah. And this is like San Diego State. It's a well-oiled machine. Like they should know this program in and out.
Right.
Yeah.
I get there and they're like, hey, Raul, turns out we can't let you in. I was like, what? I was gonna almost no matter what, but like the main thing was I stopped applying to all these other schools.
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, so you actually took, because all your sports in high school, you're in an extra amount of like physical training, like a lot of PE, a lot of weight training classes. So we had to remove all of those out. So that significantly dropped the GPA.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's not my fault. I was in my curriculum because of all these sports in high school.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm go to community college, come back in 2 years. I was like, what? Like,
What?
so I was super pissed. I had to go back to my hometown, go to my local community college. On top of that, I broke my leg like 3 months later. I couldn't walk for like a year.
Oh.
I was like, man, last year I was an E5 mission helm. I had so much respect on the submarine. I was the guy there. And now I'm just back in my hometown going to community college. Like, man, this is not the plan at all. But you know what? I guess it's God's plan. Like, it worked out for me. I went there during my rehab. I saw Movie Express. If you guys haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's about Ernie Davis. How he went through all his time here and leukemia and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that really pumped me up. I was with my dad. And I was like, Dad, I think I'm gonna apply there. And I did. I got in here, and I was like, and now I love it.
Nice.
So it's just kind of funny the way it just works out.
Exactly.
It like my original plan did not happen.
You're in a better spot.
Yeah, but now I'm in better. Like Syracuse is a better school than San Diego State. Like,
yeah.
So it worked out for me. So it's just kind of funny how you guess in like none of our so far. I don't know about Ted yet, but like none of our plans have worked out. Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ted, I just want to see what was your plan coming out? If it's kind of the same, altered.
Oh gosh, I don't think I'm going to try to follow those 3 stories. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing, your experience and your resilience and your stories with us. I will say in brief that the details of my own story reflect your own. No, this was not the plan, generally speaking. I never saw myself here. What can I say briefly that captures all the essential elements? I never planned to make it out of the Rangers. I didn't have a death wish, and but I went in very clear-eyed about what the reality is and the responsibilities and the risks were. And I very much, whether this is everybody's approach or not, I don't know, but me personally, I just took it one day at a time, and I tried not to think about the future. Until all of a sudden one day, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about, you just blink and all this time has gone by and you have to make a decision about what comes next.
Yeah.
And maybe you've thought about it, maybe you haven't, but whatever whatever plans you might have had, as we've seen from your shares, life happens. And the options that are actually available to you are very different from what you thought they were. But if there's one thing, whether I knew it or not at the time, that I did learn in the Army, it was that if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, just play to your strengths, find your tribe, and no matter what it costs you, put the team first and be deeply and totally committed to the success of those around you. And
absolutely,
that's great. Yeah.
And so the full story of exactly how I wound here obviously is much longer, and there's a lot that happened, and I was not perfect. I made a lot of mistakes and I have a lot of regrets, but the things that did work out that I'm grateful for, and that I think did follow directly from that approach of playing to your strengths, putting the team first, and finding your people. I think that's ultimately what led me to become a father. That was not in the plan. It's what led me to become an engineer. That was not in the plan. I was just trying to be of use. I had a general interest in math and science going all the way back to my childhood. And one of my Ranger buddies was he'd spent a few years in mechanical engineering school, and he wound up leaving to join the military. But he said, this is something that you could do where you could apply some of those skills and have pretty good job prospects, and you can really make an impact. And so I thought, okay, engineering in general, fine. That might be interesting. It's what led me to research, because I had an interest in national security, and specifically in that context, energy and renewable energy, and how it fits into that, how that fits into the equation. And it's what ultimately led me to come back to academia and be a teacher, because my fellow academics and my fellow teachers and the veteran community here at Syracuse, that is my tribe. And, creating value for society, but also training the next generation and mentoring and helping people come up and watching them succeed and spread their wings. That's where I fit in. And, that is the greater good for me. And when it comes to my strengths, it took a long time to find them, but eventually life steered me that way. I've heard the term God's plan shared in this room a couple of times, and that resonates with me. Just sort of learning to let go of the outcome and just trust that as long as you're always doing what at the time, based on whatever information you have, what you really believe is right, then no matter what happens, even if it's not what you planned, and even if it's not pleasant always, ultimately you'll be where you're supposed to be. And that is the best that you can hope for.
Well, that's well said. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, it was really good. Well, to move on to the next question, if you could briefly explain, what does Veterans Day mean to you, and what do you think it means to the average American?
It's a great question. Yes, I think that I feel like this is a safe place. I hesitate to say this because I worry it'll be taken the wrong way, but I don't think it will. In some ways, Veterans Day is just another day to me, personally. It's not that I don't think it's important. It's not that I'm not grateful that we commemorate the service of veterans in a national holiday and observe it in various ways. It's just that for me, my connection with my military service, my identity as a veteran, that's an everyday thing, right? And I'm probably preaching to the choir there. It's something, I still have this black carbon steel band around my arm, and it doesn't have the name of the person who I lost on it. It was given to me on my first day in my unit, and it has the names of two Rangers that came before me and were killed in the deployment before I showed up. And it was that was part of my indoctrination, is having that become my identity. Is you are here to replace the person that came before you. And that's what you have, what they did, that sacrifice they laid down, that's what you have to live up to. And you never get to take that off. That's part of who you are now. And the Ranger Creed, that's, we seek to practice those principles in all of our affairs forever. It's a life sentence being a veteran and being a public servant, being a soldier, a Marine, a warrior in general. It is the calling that you have to honor in everything you do. We're not perfect. We're not saints, but you try. You try to honor it in everything you do. So to me, Veterans Day is just not really for me, actually. People sometimes will thank me for my service, but I don't feel like it's for me. I feel like it's for everyone else who did not serve because they didn't have to. And I don't grudge them that. I celebrate that part, but we don't, as a society, we don't have to be a warrior society. We have to be a society that supports and honors its warriors and recognizes them as a integral part of a healthful and a secure and a functional nation, and a community. And whatever that means to them, to answer the second part of their question, the short answer is I don't know. And I try not to think about it. It's not that I don't try to, it's just that I never really have thought about it, I guess, until you prompted me. And I guess where I'm at right now with it, if you were to press me, if you were to really twist my arm and force an answer out of me, what do you think the average American, whatever that means, thinks of Veterans Day? How do you think they feel about it? I think that they see it as, just another day that we set aside to honor some public servants. And if they meet a veteran, they're happy to shake their hand and say, hey, thank you for your service. And they're happy to take the day off and enjoy it. And some people, resent that there's a lot of barbecues and other things that don't seem to have a lot to do with, veterans or their sacrifices. But to me, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, is that we shouldn't, society shouldn't have to be, again, a warrior society. There should be in a perfect world, there should be none of us, maybe, but since there have to be some of us, I do believe that there should be as few as possible of us, and the rest of us should gladly and with honor wear the weight and carry the scars that we do, so that everybody else can laugh with their children and barbecue with their friends and make their beautiful music and create the value for society through their family-run businesses, or just get up every day and go to their 9 to 5 and just earn as much as they need to be comfortable and spend the rest of their time figuring out what they're doing on this earth and what their own calling is. And so to me, Veterans Day is just what it needs to be. It's a chance for everybody to reflect just one day on what the military means to them. And some of them will take it as an opportunity to really, really lean into it and really, really commemorate and honor the service and the sacrifice of veterans. And some people will take it as a chance to rail against the perceived necessity for a warrior, a warrior subclass and for a military industrial complex. And they won't do us a service, individually. They might even spit on us and say, how dare you? We resent that you're even here. You know what? Good. That's what a free society looks like. I don't need you to thank me for what I did. I don't need you to understand what I did, because I know what I did. I know my reasons for doing it. And whether you know it or not, what you have is in part because of what I did. And what I have is in part because of what you did. I need that dissent. I need all of it. It takes all kinds to build a world. And so the short answer, I guess, I'm kind of rambling now. And so I'll digress and let the others take it up. But yeah, Veterans Day is not for me. And it does prompt me. It often is a day of reflection, but I hope that it's for everybody else.
Wow.
Oh,
That was very well said, man.
Yeah.
That was really deep. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. Matt, if you could briefly say what Veterans Day means to you and all that.
Yeah, I agree with some of your sentiment. Before I get into that, though, I feel a lot of your average civilian, whatever, again, average is different based on where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, who you're around, whatever. So it's a very general, broad stroking. But I think a majority of people will confuse Memorial Day with Veterans Day, or Veterans Day with Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, the biggest thing is don't thank me on Memorial Day. You know what I mean? Don't thank me for my service on Memorial Day. And like what you were saying, I don't need to be thanked any of the other days of the year either. I know what I did. I'm proud of what I did. So to me, Veterans Day is much like another day. And as you said, to reflect, kind of look back at, and I'll often reach out to some of my veteran buddies, some of the guys I was in OCS with, some of the people I deployed with, some of the people I was stationed with anywhere, and just kind of see how they've been doing, just performing a buddy check. Right. And
that's a big deal, the buddy check.
Absolutely.
Because it helps, yeah.
Absolutely. And I look at Veterans Day as like a reminder on my phone. You have a meeting at 1:00 and the alarm goes off 10 minutes prior to, get moving, or to prepare for that meeting, whatever, call in, Zoom, whatever. But for Veterans Day, when that notification comes up on my phone or on my calendar, it's just like a reminder. Like, hey, reach out to your buddies, reach out to other people who have done the same thing as you, or done more than you, done less. It doesn't matter, has worn that uniform in any variation, and kind of to see how they've been getting along. And to the population, they like the day off from work. They like the barbecues. They enjoy their freedoms. And the fact that they get that day off and they do go enjoy themselves on Veterans Day makes me happy, because it's like Ted said, it wasn't in vain, my actions. The things that I've done, the things that other people have done, and what others will perform, it's for a purpose, and it's to defend these people, to allow them to have their freedoms, defending their freedoms and their rights. Yeah, I think that's generally how I would approach it. My thought, at least.
Oh, it's amazing, the buddy check and everything.
Yeah, it's huge.
Cliff?
Oh man, like, what does Veterans Day mean to me? Like, first off, when it comes to Veterans Day as a whole, I feel like there are so many people out there that have done so much more than I did in the service. So it's like how can I, you know what I mean? Like, how can I compare like my service to others? And like, I just feel like it's not for me. I feel like it's people that have done more than me. And, I think you guys have touched on that. Like, what does Veterans Day mean for like the country as a whole? Like, like just dealing with like the VA. You know what I mean? Like, what does Veterans Day really mean for like the country? Because having blown out my wrist, I've had to go to multiple, like sometimes 3-4 appointments a week. And this was out like in Dallas, and you see the same homeless veteran with his shoes duct tape every morning for a bag of apples. Like,
Wow.
Like, that kind of does something to you mentally. Like, what does America really think, or what does the government really think about veterans? And if you see that every day, and like, it just kind of, it hurt my heart, and it still does, or like, let's say you go to and I don't mean to vent here, but like, I poke these questions to put it out there,
Yeah.
And like, say you have an MRI appointment, you're waiting like 5 hours after your appointment, to get seen, and this is at a point in time, and everyone after you is told to get, they get sent home, and some of them have waited, like a month or so to get this MRI. So like what does it really, what is Veterans Day, and what do veterans really mean? for the country. And I'm gonna finish it off with this, and like this is what kind of really got me. I stay on the north side of Syracuse over there by St. Joe's over there, and it's kind of rough. You know, a lot of homeless, lot of poverty up there. And I was moving in, and I needed to get my couch up the stairs. So I had this grand idea, to pay someone like something like $30 and help me like lift it up, upstairs. So I saw this guy digging through the dumpster, picking up cans.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy's definitely looking to make $30. So, he's like, yeah, I'll do it, and he helps me get the couch upstairs. We start up a conversation, like, yeah, man, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm homeless on the streets right now. And I asked him what he was doing before, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm a student veteran at Syracuse. And he's like, oh, I'm a veteran too.
Mhm.
And at first I didn't believe it. And then he pulled out his VA card.
Wow.
And then, you see him, you got a Vietnam veteran like out there picking up cans, dude.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Like,
Yeah.
I gave him all the money in my pocket.
Oh, how could you not?
So I really don't know what Veterans Day means. I don't.
That's fair.
It's not for me, but like I said, there's other people out there, and I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it at that, guys. Sorry.
Yeah,
No,
that's,
beautifully said.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Yeah.
So coming into the final segment of this fantastic podcast, you guys all said fantastic things about various topics, and I truly appreciate you guys coming here. So I'd like to end it with asking all my guests their favorite quote. But I will go first. My favorite quote is be greater than your greatest obstacle.
Mm.
Which to me means like there's always gonna be a reason why you can't do something. But if you really want it that bad, be greater than the obstacle and overcome it. Whatever the case may be, whatever you have to do, just do it.
Yeah.
So Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I think as a musician by hobby, I hear a lot of profound things said, and one that always struck me. It's always come with me everywhere I've been. I've always thought about this. Whenever people ask me about quotes, this is usually the one I'll give, even though there's been some magnificent things said by so many other people as well. But Jimi Hendrix once said, "When the power of love outweighs the love of power, the world will know peace." And whether you've had combat time, you don't have combat time, whether you served, you didn't serve, I think it's a general message that most people can respect in saying that, the power of love is something that could be so much greater than any position you've ever held, is money that you've ever made, land you've ever owned, whatever that might be. And to the people who are married out there, to people who have, a dog, a cat, kids, who, if you love something, right, you know what I'm talking about. And to know and understand that feeling is to me so much greater than any amount of power or prestige that you might ever be able to obtain in your life.
Wow, it's a great quote. Ted, do you want to go next?
Beg your pardon, my mute was on. Yeah. You guys have inspired me. I had a quote that I was going to share by Einstein, because I had this cute idea that I was going to round off my contributions with something not, at all related to my military experience, and rather to my new life as an academic and a scientist. But I'm calling it audible, and if you don't mind me, waxing a little bit corny, can I do a fictional quote? It's not a real person. It's from a drama.
Whatever best represents you.
All right, man. Like so, you guys' stories are really incredible, and I want more of them. So I wish I was there in person, but we'll meet up at some time. What you guys have made me think about is, the HBO miniseries Chernobyl. I think I don't know who the audience is, so in case there's anyone who hasn't seen it, there's a scene where basically some plant workers who were never supposed to be putting their lives at risk when they signed up for this job are being told you're going to wade into radioactive water and it's probably going to kill you. and we're going to pay you basically nothing for it. And we need volunteers. And they're like, why should we do this? And I don't remember the exact words, but I'll paraphrase. One of the characters in the show says, you'll do it because no one else can. You'll do it because it must be done.
Wow.
This is what always has set our people apart. This is what has always set our people apart. 1,000 years of sacrifice in our veins. So now you do this because it must be done.
Wow.
You'll do it because if you don't, millions will die. And if you tell me that that's not good enough, I don't believe you.
Wow.
Wow.
That's really good.
That's really good.
Cliff? There's a lot to lead up with, but
Yeah.
follow,
I
I mean.
thought it was a
But,
tough one
yeah.
to follow. But I'm just gonna. It's part of the poem by Robert Frost, "Road Not Taken," and I'm just gonna. It's the last stanza. I'm just gonna read it off. And it says, "Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and it has made all the difference." And I just feel like, just as a veteran and being a part of that, veteran community, we are like the minute percent of the population that decided to serve and wear the uniform and to serve. And it's made all the difference. Like in my life, like we've talked about this entire time, it's God's plan, and like just taking that road. I don't even know where this road's going. It's not traveled upon. Like I'm going through the weeds. I'm going through the jungle and the bushes, and like in the first part of the poem actually states, I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages hence, like what happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm going, and that's maybe the beauty of the journey. But it's been awesome, and you, especially Ted, you're a deep guy. Matt, you're a smart dude. Like
Appreciate you.
Rudy, thanks for bringing us here, and this was awesome, guys.
Yeah, that's a fantastic quote. It's a fantastic poem. But I truly appreciate all three of you guys taking time out of your busy schedules, busy days, and come together and talk about your journeys, your past, how you got here, and then Veterans Day, and then what it means. Because I feel a lot of civilians, like, they say a lot of things, a lot of barbecues, a lot of stuff, but like sometimes I feel like they never ask us what we think about it. And I think this was a cool clarification of, like, us from the veterans' point of view, what do we think about this day? Like, quote unquote, our day.
Right.
So I truly appreciate all three of you guys spending time with us.
We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your service to this community, Raul. Thanks for taking the initiative
right.
and bringing all this together. It's something really special that you're doing here. I get that now.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words, and have a fantastic day.